Welcome to Cuentame, our stories, our lives, our history. I'm Dr. Nancy Vera, the host and narrator of the show. Cuentame is a bilingual radio program dedicated to recording oral histories of Mexican Americans in Corpus Christi, Texas. Cuentame complements a new project called Inspirational Voyages, a virtual museum of Mexican Americans in Corpus Christi. And you can visit Inspirational Voyages at www.mexicanamericanhistory.com. It features photographs, videos, and biographies of pioneers, leaders, and families here in the Coastal Bend. These projects are important because of the need to document the lives of Latinos that have been omitted intentionally or not from our history books. Dr. Hector P. Garcia is considered Corpus Christi's statesman. Books, movies, roads, statues, everything we see every day in Corpus Christi reminds us about his contributions to our city, state, and the nation. Yet we still yearn to know more about Dr. Hector P. Garcia. So with us today on Cuentame, we are ensuring that his legacy continues, and she is ensuring that his legacy continues for generations to come. Our studios are graced today with the presence of Cecilia Garcia Akers, one of Dr. Hector's daughters. Cecilia Garcia Akers, welcome to Cuentame.
Thank you. We are so excited to be here.
Great. I'm happy you'll be here. And you're going to give us, Cecilia, some insight into the life of Dr. Hector P. Garcia, but I first want you to introduce the person who is sitting to your right. Who is that?
What would I do without him? My beloved husband, Jimmy. We call him Jimmy Akers.
Hi, I'm happy to be here, and anything I can do to help Cecilia and help Dr. Hector's legacy, I'm willing to do, and we've bought into this, and we'll see it to the end.
All right. You're lucky to have such a supportive husband.
I was telling him that today. I said, you didn't have to buy into this. You could have said, his legacy is there. You don't have to worry about it, but we did. We realized a few years ago that he does not have the recognition that he really needs.
Well, that's what I mean. He was a statesman, and I don't know of anyone from Corpus Christi who has had an international influence as he has. And I was trying to jog my memory to see if I could find anyone, and he is the only one.
I think you're exactly right. All the research that we've done, even though he was my father, there was so little we knew about him until after his death, and we started doing some research on him. His contributions, not only to this country, but to this world, were very significant.
Yes, they were. And, I did my research on Dr. Hector P. Garcia and his leadership style, and I just developed a Garcian leadership model, by the way. He's got a leadership model. And I've compared him to other leaders. But in doing that, I realized what a humanitarian and great, just the great things that he accomplished. And, we only live here, we're only on Earth for a short time, but his contributions were so magnificent, so grand, that I don't think we're ever going to forget him, Cecilia. I don't think so at all. But what I want to know is, what is it like to have an iconic father like Dr. Hector P. Garcia? Tell me how you feel. What's that like?
Well, he was always Papa to me, always. And one thing about him, that even though he accomplished so many great and wonderful things, he never talked about them. He never bragged about them. That's why we knew so little of him until after I started doing my own research as to what he actually accomplished. He just was so humble in what he did, and being his daughter, and I know my other sisters probably feel the same way. It was rough. It was rough growing up. It was rough, people not understanding what he wanted to do and why he was doing it, how he was trying to change things, how he was trying to make things equal for everyone, and it was very, very difficult. And looking back on those days, I tell my husband that all the time. I just don't know how we really survived emotionally.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I know that when I read about Martin Luther King and his family and the difficulties they went through in trying to bring about a better world, that they had to suffer so much. that they were threatened, and finally with Martin Luther King, he was assassinated.
Right.
I'm happy that didn't happen to Dr. Hector,
Right.
but still, I can only imagine what kind of trials and tribulations you as a family you went through.
Well, it was rough. There was a point in our lives, we were at St. Patrick's Catholic school, and he had to have someone come pick us up from school every day. We were very limited in our activities outside school or the home.
Was he afraid for your safety?
He was afraid for our safety because people would call him at his office or call him at his home when before he got an unlisted number threatening to take his children and kidnap them and kill him and kill us. And
was that mostly because you think of racism, or do you think it was because of his activity?
I think it was both. I think basically looking back, I think they just feared him. They didn't know what he was doing, and there's just a lot of fear when the unknown or minorities start moving up the ladder. There were a lot of people that didn't want that. They wanted Mexicans to be garbage collectors and non-educated and not be professors and doctors and lawyers. And that's how it was back then. And I think they just wanted minorities to just stay as maids and servants.
That must have been a very stressful situation for Dr. Hector, knowing that he was doing so much good, but yet knowing that so many people were after him and his family.
Yes, I think it really was. But I think it was, but he never showed that side of it. He never once backed off. He never once said, I can't do this anymore. He never hid from it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just a very courageous and brave person to put his life on the line, actually, if you look at it, and his family also. But it was something he wasn't going to change, and we knew that. We just knew this was a part of our life.
I know some critics from back then were, I think, afraid of Dr. Hector, but even in the Mexican-American community, I think there was a lot of fear, and I think there was a lot of jealousy, and then there were some people saying, oh, well, it's self-aggrandizement. But if you look back on his life, and you see what he accomplished, and you see the suffering he had to incur as a result of his activities,
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing self-aggrandizing about that.
No, absolutely not, because when he died a poor man. And all his money, whatever money he made as a physician went into his struggling for civil rights, went into the American GI Forum, went into everything he was doing. The only thing that he decided that he wanted to splurge on was he would get a new Cadillac every few years. That was the only thing. He didn't spend money lavishly. They bought that house in Lamar Park in the late 50s. They built it. He didn't move around. He just, he didn't know how to save money. That was part of it. But whoever needed help, they would get his money.
They would get his money.
He would get his money, definitely.
Well, I know that you growing up, you had 3 sisters.
I have 2 sisters, and I had a brother.
You had, yes, and your brother, what was his name?
His name was Hector Jr.
Okay, and what happened to Hector?
Hector was just graduated from St. Patrick's Catholic school. He was going to he had gone to the seminary for about a month. Then after that, my father sent Hector Jr. and my older sister Daisy to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted them to learn Spanish. So he sent them there for a vacation. And soon after they arrived, they were doing some climbing in some mountains, and he fell. And they thought he was okay. He was in Mexico, and not knowing what kind of medical care he received after the fall, but from what I heard, that he went into shock soon after the fall, and they sent him to a hospital, but he only had one functioning kidney. The other one had been diseased when he was young, and that's where he had fallen on that one functioning kidney.
I'm sure that was a terrible impact on the family.
It was.
How old were you when that happened?
I was about 9.
So you were old enough to know what was going on.
Absolutely. He and I were very close. We played baseball together. We were very close because he was 4 years older than me, and we were very, very close. He taught me a lot about sports and baseball, and he was just a regular kid, you know, very tall for his age, for being 13. He was almost 6 feet, very handsome, looked very European. He was just a very young, very nice young man. It was just a tremendous loss, especially to my father, that I think that he never recovered from it. I really don't think he did.
The loss of any child.
Yeah, but him and my mother, I think they just, you know, couldn't understand, and I'm sure there was some blame to him for sending the older children there, and I'm sure she felt
Some
that.
guilt, yeah.
I think so, and I, you know, it was just very difficult for them.
And that's the thing, is that sometimes we see people who are successful, or who are like Dr. Hector, and we don't think about those things, that they're actually impacted emotionally and impacted for the rest of their life because of that of a loss like that, or any type of loss. And the one thing I do know is that in looking at pictures and videos of Dr. Hector, I see that he never expressed emotion outside in the public, and I think that's admirable too. I don't think he ever said anything. I think it was pretty personal, and that's what's admirable about Dr. Hector. He knew about his personal life, and he took care of his his family. And to me, as I tell other people who are on the program, is that family is so important. They're the parents are the first line teachers in the family. So in talking about your sisters and your brother, how was it living in the Garcia household? I know that you went to school and you were picked on, you said that earlier, but what would you do when Dr. Hector would come home? I mean, did you eat dinner together? Or?
We ate dinner together. He was really good about coming home between 5 and 7, and my mother would cook dinner for us, and he would hang around the house for a little while and watch television, and then about 8 or 9, he would go back to the hospital and make his rounds till 1 or 2 in the morning.
You know, how did he do that? When did
I
he
have
sleep?
no idea. He would come back at 1 or 2 in the morning and then sleep in the morning till about 9 and have breakfast, and then go to his office and start his work in his office with his patients. He would see 20 to 30 patients a day, going back and forth to the hospital, and he never worked on appointments, and he never turned anyone away.
Wow.
Right.
And you know, the thing about it is, I remember I was a little girl and going into his office, and I would see a lot of people. That's all I remember. A lot of people, a lot of papers.
Yes.
And when we're talking people, we're not just talking local people. There were senators and also.
That's right.
And I'd say, what is going on? I was too little to understand. I said, I saw him on TV. What's he doing here? What was that like? Did you have people like that come to your home?
No, well, see, I was fortunate that when I was 16, he decided I was going to go work with him. So when I was 16 years old, I went to work with him in his office. So that lasted till I went through physical therapy school and graduated, and then I moved to San Antonio with my husband. We got married and we moved to San Antonio. So about 10 years I got to work with him. So this was a daily occurrence for him, having senators come in, telephone calls from the president's office, congressmen calling, the mayor, people, lots of times people would just drop in on him to want to see him. How to get out the vote, how to get reelected.
People would go to him for his blessing.
People would go to him and try to get his support endorsement.
You know, and I didn't know until much later when I started getting really getting involved in politics that there were people that you really had to go to and talk to, and I think Dr. Hector was one of those people.
Absolutely.
If not the main person.
He was the main person back then, yes.
What strikes you most about your childhood and growing up in the Garcia family?
Well, I think looking back, it was very complex, and we missed him a lot. He wasn't around very much because he was always busy and working and trying to take care of not only his patients but people that really needed him outside his medical practice. And I think the courage and the intelligence of my beloved mother, I think.
Because your mother had a doctorate.
She had a doctorate in classical literature from the University of Naples.
Wow.
Yeah, she was very, very intelligent. And I think, she had to flow with the punches, and we had to realize this was our life. This is what he was going to do. But, as far as holidays, and he always brought home lots of food, and he always went to the store and brought home things that we wanted to eat. If he knew we were coming for the weekend, he would go and buy us whatever he knew we wanted, and he would stock the house for our visits. And even though he wasn't around us, I knew that he was really loved us, but he could not give the time to us that he probably wanted.
And how does that make you feel?
Well, it was always painful all my life, but I'll tell you one thing. I learned that I knew that the only way I would get to know him is if I went to work with him when I was 16.
Wow.
I knew that then. The only way I'm going to learn what my father is like, and he can teach me some things, is to go to his office and work with him, because he wanted me to become a doctor. So he showed me everything. We went on rounds. I did histories for him and vital signs, and talked to his patients and wrote a little history for him before he came into the room and took over. But he taught me so many things that I could never learn in a book.
And why didn't you become a doctor?
Well, we tried. I tried to get into medical school one year, and it was just too rough. I said, what? I told him, I said, what? I said, I'm going to go to physical therapy school. And so I got in right away, and I did that. But Jim always laughs because, on graduation day, we were in Galveston at Guido's, and he asked me, when are you going to take the MCAT to go to medical school? I mean, he didn't accept that for about 8 years.
She had just graduated, and we were sitting there at lunch. And her name is Adriana Cecilia, and he always called her Adriana. And he looks across the table just like Dr. Hector always did when he asked questions. Adriana, when are you going to go take the MCAT? And her jaw just dropped.
Yeah, I said,
because she had been in school forever.
Yeah,
we're celebrating here, now you want me to go back.
It was like, he just wanted me so badly to become a doctor and come to Corpus and work with him. I know that's what he wanted. I know that's what it was.
What do you think about that now?
Well, Jim always says you would have been a great doctor, and I know the knowledge that he gave me, and sometimes I wish I had.
And the mentoring.
Yeah, and the mentoring. I mean, come on, where can you get something like that? But I'm a good physical therapist. I do well financially. I don't have to worry about finding a job or taking care of my patients, and I'm very happy with what I'm doing, and I think it was probably a good choice for me.
Well, someone told me, I think it was Dr. Dahlia, because I've had several conversations with her, or maybe not. Maybe it was somebody else, but that Dr. Hector always wanted to be called Dr. Hector even at home. Is that correct?
No, we called him Papa.
Well, see, somebody told me that.
No. We called him Papa. Papa.
Okay.
Even my mother called him Papa.
Really?
Yeah, my mother didn't call him Hector. She called him Papa.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, now tell me, Cecilia, when did you realize he was such an iconic figure?
Oh, I think, all our life we knew he would do all these wonderful things, got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, got so many awards. But you have to understand that was like a everyday thing, It was after his death that I started researching and going, Papa did this, Papa did that, Papa had such an influence. Voters' right, health care.
Yeah.
What would he do today with all this going on? He would be blasting all the politicians. It would be so interesting if he were here today, is how he would handle it. But I think it was after his death that I really realized, looking back historically, talking to people at A&M University, Dr. Krennic that was there, Grace Charles, telling me so many things that he had done and all the things that had collected from him to put there. I think I realized, what? I said, he deserves more recognition than he's getting.
And so now what have you decided to do? I know that I see you here in Corpus Christi, then since you're my Facebook friend, I see you in San Antonio and all over those states.
We are everywhere. We started a foundation last year, the Dr. Hector P. Garcia Memorial Foundation, and we have a website which has a lot of historical information on him. And one very interesting thing is if you go under the tab of Dr. Hector's message and you scroll down like the third paragraph, there's a italics that says interview, and you hit that. That's in his own voice. For 22 minutes they're interviewing him.
How neat is that?
And he's talking about the American GI Forum, why he started that.
Why he started the GI Forum and how it evolved, and he's made the statement in that video, in that recording, that he did not intend for the American GI Forum to be a civil rights organization. It
Really?
evolved into that
It
because
was
of the things that were
veterans.
going on. He formed it to be a veterans organization to help veterans with education and things like that. But the need became that he had to go a little farther with it, obviously, with the Longoria affair and things like that, and it evolved into that. A lot of people think that it was always a civil rights organization. In his own words, he says he did not intend it to be that.
No. And he talks about his struggles. He says we always went to federal courts because the states were always trying to discriminate and to hold them down and to stop him. So he went above the state's head and went nationally to get legislation passed or go to court. And very interesting, his thoughts. And they talk about threats on his life and his family. And he, at one point, he says, "I really don't care if I die a poor man." He says that in his own voice. I mean, that was his mentality. He said his father taught him that he had to serve the community at all costs. And that's
he
what
did.
he did.
And he did. What is the URL address of your foundation for Dr.
www.drhectorpgarciafoundation.org.
www.drhectorpgarciafoundation.org. Okay. I hope everybody noted that, because I think we need to send a lot of people your way for
Thank
that
you.
foundation.
Thank you.
And what's the purpose of that foundation?
We
Celia?
are, well, right now, we've got two things. We're raising money for scholarships. We've been working with some certain universities. We just gave our first one to Incarnate Word Academy in September. We're very proud about that. And the connection there with my father is that he was the sister's personal physician.
I didn't know that.
They would either call him on the phone, he would pack his little black bag and go to the convent and take care of those sisters for free. He never
Pro
charged
bono.
them. And they would come to his office, he would take care of them for free. They just called him all the time. So, and then of course all of his daughters are graduates from Incarnate Word, so we just thought that was appropriate to have the connection with Incarnate Word in his life because it was so substantial.
Well, and he did that for a lot of people. He would go
All
to their
the
homes
time.
and treat them pro bono. Is there any particular instance that you remember where he went to someone's house or did something gracious like that?
He just did it all the time, or the emergency room. At that time, he was going to the emergency room a lot until hospitals started getting their own ER doctors. So he would go to the emergency room and file their insurance, but he didn't care if he got paid or not. That's not why he was a doctor. That he was a doctor to take care of people, and whether he got paid or not, he didn't really care about that.
Well, it seems to me that he reached in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he reached self-affirmation, that he was a whole human being. He knew exactly where he was going and what he was going to do.
I think so.
Do you
I
believe
think
that,
he
Jim?
knew that at a very young age, too.
Yeah. What was it like when you met, Jim, when you met Dr. Hector? I'd like to know what he thought of somebody taking Cecilia right after she
guarantee,
graduated.
and I don't think it was just because it was me. I don't think he would have been happy of anyone taking his daughter away from Dr. Hector.
Tell me what that was like.
But
Did you
yeah,
know him? Had you heard about him?
I had heard about him, yes, and I came from a small town, Pleasanton, Texas, south of San Antonio.
Yeah.
And I was raised in a smaller, as she says sometimes, redneck city, but I was not a redneck. But Dr. Hector and I, we learned to love each other, and he realized that I was going to take care of his daughter.
Okay.
And we did a lot of things together. He loved to play dominoes.
I didn't know that either.
But I tell you, he hated to lose.
Was he good at
And
it?
but he didn't lose very often.
Okay.
But when he did lose, he hated to lose at anything. That's why he was so intense, I think, at everything that he did. Because, as someone else said, they were both Capricorns, and Capricorns hate to lose,
Yeah.
and he really did. But, we had a lot of good times together, and, we'd sit on the weekends when he would be at home, and he loved to watch football games, he loved to watch basketball games, University of Texas, the Spurs. He liked the Los Angeles Lakers because she did at that time.
Oh.
But when the Spurs were playing, it was the Spurs.
Yes.
And anything to do with the University of Texas, he loved that because he went to school there.
Yes.
And I think what Cecilia said earlier, a lot of things that we found out about him after he had passed away is because he was such a humble man. I mean, he didn't brag about anything he did. He didn't come home and say, well, I'm getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom next week, or I went through all of it. He didn't.
Just kidding.
He says, I get this phone call and they're going to present me the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Her jaw drops.
I know. It's like, what?
And he was
that important?
it's just like nonchalant, like you do that every day, And but
Yeah.
he was very humbled with it. I mean, he just he didn't think he deserved it, and he probably deserved a lot more than that. But if anyone ever deserved it, he did. He really did.
Yeah. And so, Cecilia, your jaw dropped when he said that, or you said, wait a minute.
Yeah, I said, what? And then he goes, yeah, we have to all go to Washington because we have to go and all that. I said, okay. But he was just like, I mean, I would have probably had a car accident if it had been me and they'd called me, something. He just, I think he just thought this was where he needed to be. This was his place. And he felt he had a mission. And my mother always said that when they got married in Naples. Her family wanted him to stay in Naples and practice medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And he told her family, no, I have a mission back in the United States.
He knew he had to take care of people and things here that he had to do.
He had a mission.
And something that I've always wondered, and I tell young people this a lot of times, we're talking about Dr. Hector, that all the things he accomplished, he did without pagers, without cell phones. What would he be able to do today with the media that's available?
And internet.
And it's just amazing. I mean, everything he accomplished, he did by his hunt and peck typewriter, which he was pretty good at. And telephone and telegram.
Mm-hmm.
Telegram.
He sent telegrams all the time.
He sent telegram just like people use emails today.
Wow.
But he did telegram. Of course, there was no email then. But.
Well, and I think things were a little bit more costly back then. Here to send an email, it really doesn't cost all that much.
Right.
But telegrams cost
He
money.
sent telegrams all the time.
All the time.
And the other thing is that he did take people to court to fight for their rights. And how did he finance all that? By himself, or did he have friends?
Sometimes himself.
Or how did he
sometimes
manage that?
Jeff Worm would step up, and they would have fundraisers. They would have dances. They would raise money that way to help. And of course, I'm sure a lot of those attorneys did it for free. The notoriety of a civil rights case, it go to the Supreme Court or district court or federal court. I mean, I would do it for free,
Yeah.
if you have that much exposure.
And he had the ability to, he could get people to want to help him do things like no person I've ever seen.
How did he do that, Jim? How did he do that?
Personality.
His personality, and he was very intelligent. He could present a point it was so crystal clear when he got through it. I mean, there was no doubt what he wanted, where he was going with it, and what the results would be if you'd help him get it accomplished. And he could walk in a room and just command the whole room. People would quiet down, and everyone wanted to listen to what Dr. Hector had to say. He was always that way. And many times I've seen him take an index card with about 3 lines on it and stand and talk for 3 hours and never repeat the same thing.
Wow.
She does the same thing.
Really?
Yes, she does. And a lot of people have heard this whole say. She gets mad when I say this, but have this old
Don't get mad, Cecilia.
have this old saying that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Yeah.
Well, here's the apple, and Dr. Hector was the tree.
Well, all I can say is I had a very good teacher, and I'm very blessed that he was my father, because I feel as his daughter the least I can do for him and my mother is to have the recognition that he should have, And one of our main projects, our first one, which is very ambitious, is to expand the library wing at Texas A&M University, put all his documents and photographs into a Hector P. Garcia Memorial Wing.
How is TAMU-CC helping with that?
Well, we are going to be, after our 100th birthday celebration, which is in January, we will be probably talking to some big corporations and individuals about getting some donations. And of course, we'll take $25, $50. We need to raise about $10 million pretty quickly.
That's a lot of money.
It
I mean,
is.
quickly.
Yes, pretty quickly.
But the building is, the concept of the building so far is about 28,000 square feet. And it will be set up like a presidential library where you can go in and you see the whole life of Dr. Hector, everything.
How neat is that?
Oh, I know.
And they plan on having a School of Public Policy in the same building, not just a think tank, but people that want to know about civil rights, people that want to know about what Dr. Hector did, and it's going to be a place for learning. And, it's just a dream till we get the money, but we're starting to get the money. And everything that we make from this luncheon that we're having for Dr. Hector P. Garcia is going to go to our foundation, but it's going to be donated to Texas A&M University for that wing.
In a special fund.
We're not taking,
Special fund.
we're not taking a penny out of it. We have some people that have stepped up and said they would underwrite the thing for us, and all the money that we're going to make, hopefully it'll be as much as we can, will go toward that.
Now, the 100th anniversary is that he would have been 100 years
100
old
years
in January?
January 17th.
January 17th.
Mhm.
Now, this celebration, this anniversary, is that the only thing you're going to have? Is that luncheon or you plan events?
We have so far, we have confirmed, we'll have a gravesite service on Monday
Where is he buried?
at Seaside. We're going to
Okay.
have a gravesite service with refreshments and a speaker. We're going to have a color guard. We're going to have some music. Tuesday, we have a city council proclamation to be presented to the foundation. Wednesday, we have a VIP reception at Barbara Canales' restaurant for our top donors.
That's Havana?
Havana, yeah. Top donors,
Downtown.
get that? Top donors will be invited.
Well, how much do top donors have to give? How much do top
Oh,
donors have to give?
we haven't decided.
haven't?
We
Okay.
just, whoever really wants to come, we'll probably include them. And then Thursday, we're having a high mass at the cathedral with a reception for the public afterwards. Bishop Mulvey is going to be saying it for us.
Oh, great.
And then Friday's our big luncheon. Now, we also are working with Del Mar about having showing of Justice for My People.
Yes, for a PBS series?
Yes,
Mhm.
we're going to be having that on one day. We got to confirm that.
We're not sure what day yet. We're working with Del Mar and Corpus Christi Middle School District. The collegiate class at Del Mar, I think, has about 400 students in it. They want to try to let them all see that video. Now, we were going to do, Jeff Phelps has abbreviated version of that CD that we were going to use, or DVD, but the way it's going, we may wind up showing the whole hour and a half, because it is an hour and a half long.
Well, I tell you what, every year I show the entire hour and a half in my English class because I believe it's important that our students know that we have an icon who lived right here and traversed these streets that we traverse, and that he was just an iconic individual. I think that we need to do more in our schools regarding
So do I.
Dr. Hector P. Garcia
Agree.
and other leaders in our community who have been pioneers and made it easier for us to do what we're doing. In fact, it's made it easier for me as a teacher and the students. It's made it easier for the students because, remember, he fought for the desegregation of schools here in Corpus Christi. And I think that was a major accomplishment for him and for all of the people who worked hard at it. So I was hoping that we could somehow address Corpus Christi Independent School District for them to make it part of their curriculum. I think that's one of the dreams that I have, is that we have units or lesson plans based on people like Dr. Hector P. Garcia, like Dr. Cleo, Dr. J.A. Garcia, and like, for example, the Gallardos, who are a pioneer music family here, and the Galvan family. So those types of things are very important to our community, so our culture can be told shared with everyone. So so I think that's one of my goals. But tell me more about this anniversary, 100th anniversary. How can someone find out about this anniversary? How can, if somebody really wants to take part, are you going to accept volunteers? Or you go? I know you need money.
We
I know
need
that.
money.
But
we
what
need
if we
money.
don't have any money and
Okay.
we want to participate? Is that okay too?
All the events are free except for the luncheon.
Okay.
All the events are free, except in the VIP reception, but everything else is free. Everything's going to be free. They can just attend. Caller Times is going to be doing a calendar for us in December. Once we get everything in stone and who the speakers are and everything, we're still awaiting a keynote speaker for our luncheon. So we're still working on that. And we don't want to announce anything until we get everything firmed up. That would just be wrong for us to do that. So they're going to do that. We're going to be putting it on Facebook. We are going to be putting it on our website too. Everything will be on there.
So it's sort of like a citywide celebration.
It is
Yes,
a
Dr.
citywide
Hector
celebration,
Garcia.
yes.
Wow, how neat is that?
I think it's wonderful.
That's great. That's
We're
great.
so excited.
Now, Cecilia, I really don't remember. Well, I came back to Corpus Christi in 2000, but I think I saw this movement for Dr. Hector from you about beginning 7 years ago. Is that when you had the opportunity? Is that when you did your research and that's when you had the epiphany that you needed to do something, or what?
What really happened was, it's kind of sad, and I'll let Jim tell you.
Okay,
tell this
Jim.
story.
It's
It's
so
kind of
sad.
sad for me to repeat it, but Jim is good at
Well,
saying.
we were at home one weekend, and Cecilia's mother, she had a very, very nice apartment about 10 minutes from where we lived.
Yes.
And she was very independent. She did not want to be in a dependent area at all on someone. She was very independent. But we got a phone call one day, one Sunday, and she was crying. And Cecilia asked her what was wrong. Well, it happened to be March, and March was the founding month of the American GI Forum. And she had just received a copy of the Forum Mirror. And as bad as I hate to say this, she was crying because in that copy of the Forum Mirror there was not one mention of Dr. Hector, not one mention it was the month that the GI Forum was started, or no pictures of him on there at all, none. So we went over to her apartment and we talked to her for quite a while, and Cecilia and I both made her a promise. She was afraid that people were going away from what Dr. Hector had taught, that they were complacent as where they were now, and that's, you know, they were fine with what they was. They didn't really want to pay tribute to the man that presented them with that, and they're almost acting like they had forgotten who he was. And she was afraid that people were going to forget his 50 years of fighting for people's rights, and all the contributions that he made, and all the sacrifices that she made, allowing him to be able to do what he did. But we made her a promise that day that we were, if it was possible, we were not going to allow that to happen. And that day we started, and it's come to this.
And
We had a lot of people push us to do this foundation.
And I think, Jim, you touched on a very good point, is the sacrifices that your mama made.
Absolutely.
Cecilia. I think that that if Dr. Hector hadn't have had her at home, it would have been very difficult, especially
Very.
someone as brilliant as she was, because I knew she was,
Yes.
to be able to do what he did. What do you think about your mother, and what are some of the things that you heard her say about Dr. Hector? Because I don't think I ever heard her complain.
No, she would privately some, but basically, when he died, the main thing was finances for her. And,
Yes,
because then he didn't leave her much money, so whatever money that we had, we invested it for her. Then as she got a little older, we moved her to San Antonio so I could take care of her better. So in 2002 we moved her to San Antonio, and she had some health problems, and we got her through all of that. and we invested money with a investment, a CPA guy who, you know, really helped us a lot so that she had income other than her Social Security, or his Social Security. She had some income coming in that would take care of her, and she would never have to worry about money again. So we did that for her. She was very grateful for that. She was a little leery of it. She said she hated the stock market, but then after a while she realized that this was going to be good for her, and so she lived a very stress-free life in a beautiful retirement community and was chauffeured around in a limo anywhere she wanted to go.
Wow.
What a into her life she had, and we were happy that we were there in San Antonio helping her. We got her some very good doctors to take care of her. She had some health problems. We had to get those all resolved, and she did extremely well. Of course, we took very good care of her, making sure that she had the best medical care that we could get for her.
She deserved it.
She did. And my connections, that's another thing, the connections I had with physicians there in San Antonio, home health companies, hospitals, you know, they bent over backwards to help her.
Well, she's the unsung hero here.
She is.
She definitely was. And you know, something that I still, to this day, can't really understand is, you know, these were two very, very intelligent people. And why people couldn't accept them for that, and that they wanted to help it, but they were afraid of Dr. Hector, like we spoke earlier, because he was such a person. I mean, he knew what the Constitution stood for. He could recite probably the whole thing, and he knew that people, his people, were not afforded the same rights that everyone, that the Constitution said that they deserved, especially when he came back from the war. And all these people had come back with him that had just risked their life. A lot of them gave their life to fight for this country, and they weren't afforded the promises that they were given when they left.
I think even though he may have had his critics, especially during his life that I've read, that it was amazing to me how he was able to withstand that and continue on with his work, because these
It didn't stop him.
It didn't stop him,
No.
and it didn't discourage him.
No.
And that strength of character, at least within our intrinsic character, is what's admirable too, is that he not only did these things, but he was so sure of himself that he actually went out and didn't care. Look, this is what is right, and this is
That's
what we're
right.
going to do. And that's amazing to me.
He never stopped. He would never stop. He knew what the picture he had, the final picture, he knew what that was, and he was going to risk whatever and do whatever he needed to get it done.
And I wonder, Cecilia and Jim, if he were here now, I wonder if he would see some of the people that we have who don't want to get anyone upset, and so don't say anything about some of the atrocities that are going on right now. I think I'm talking a little bit about the voter ID, and to me, you know, I think that the immigration and everything that's going on with that, and people are afraid to say something because they don't want to step on anyone's toes. Dr. Hector was not like that.
No, he wasn't.
He did. I can remember when they started this English-only movement. It was a few years before he died. He was all over the place with that. He said it's a violation of the Constitution, and it was he was so against it. And some of his colleagues that were doing opinion pieces in the paper that were for English only, he wrote them letters, and he would be out. Look, let me tell you, if he were here, he would be out there every day telling everybody off. He really would. He wouldn't care who we offended. He didn't care. He knew what was right, and if he groomed so many politicians, he really did.
Well, and I know that in talking to other people, and in fact, we're talking about loyalty, and loyalty to Dr. Hector and his ideals.
Right.
I wonder, were there any concerns with some of those people? Because I know that there are people that probably said, no, I don't want to be associated with Dr. Hector right now because that's too controversial a topic. It's too hot of a topic. I don't want. What did he have any reactions to that? Or
No.
to people who wouldn't
I
be
don't
loyal
think so.
to him?
I think, you know, you were either, the majority of people needed his help to get elected. I mean, think about that. He could deliver the Hispanic vote, and he went out there in a pickup with a
Electronic bullhorn.
and driving around
Uh-huh.
in the west side of Corpus Christi, yelling in that
Himself.
bullhorn.
He didn't
Yes,
have somebody else
No,
do
he
it.
didn't have someone else do it. No, he did it himself.
Someone would drive the truck, but he would be in that front seat yelling at everyone to go vote today. And I mean,
In English and Spanish.
in English
Yes,
and Spanish, and that's
yes.
how he did it. That's how he got people to go vote, or he would have sample ballots in his office.
And when his patients, would he show them to his patients?
He would come out and he would have conversations with them, and he would give them a sample ballot.
I think that's what's so amazing is that he was a top-notch organizer in talking to people. I mean, it takes time to sit down and talk to someone about voting for something or communicating some sort of issue to them and having them, or at least explaining to them what's going on with that particular issue. But he took the time to do that. That's what made him a master organizer, I think.
Right. He took the time.
And you would see it because you were there at 16.
Right.
Wow.
What a fortunate turn in my life, really, to be so close to him and see all of that.
Your sisters, did they ever work in the office?
No, they did not.
You were the only one?
I was the only one.
You were privileged to see it.
I don't know about that, but I sure learned a lot from him. I really did.
What do you think Dr. Hector would tell our children now about their future?
I would think, first of all, he would say, you have to get an education. You have to get the highest level possible. He would be giving them good tips on health care, how to care for their diseases and illnesses, but basically he would be out there lecturing to people, and that's what I try to do. I go to different universities and talk about getting an education, and I think that would be his main thing, to make sure you have to finish school. And you know, the success rate of Hispanics above just a bachelor's degree is very low.
It is very
It's like
low.
12-16%
Yes.
nationally.
Yes, and here in Corpus Christi we have a high illiteracy rate.
Mhm.
And I know that he would be, I think that toward the end of his life he was working in Las Colonias against those types of, that's an atrocity.
Right.
Where if people aren't familiar with Las Colonias, they don't have any roads and they don't have running water in some of these places because the developers just wanted to sell land at a cheap rate, and they were flood zones, and so they would sell them to the poverty-stricken, and most of the time they were Latinos. They were Mexican Americans.
Exactly, yeah. And you know what? Mathis
Mm-hmm.
is just down the road,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where he did a lot of his work there. There were just horrible, horrible places there in Mathis, and
Did you ever go with him?
sometimes, but not, he wouldn't, you know, he wouldn't take us to something as bad as that. He did take me to some of the schools when
Now
he
that's serious when
Yeah.
you say as bad as that.
Yeah, it was bad. But he would take me to some of the schools, like in Corpus, that were really subpar, and show me this is where these kids have to go to school. You know, some of them were just horrible. He did take me to some of the schools when he was doing the fighting the school district.
School
Uh-huh.
segregation.
Yeah.
Dana Williams.
Yeah, good old Dr. Dana Williams.
Tell
Well,
her
he
the,
didn't
tell her the
really have
story
his
of Dana
doctorate.
Williams.
But tell me the story of Dana Williams.
Dana Williams, you know, they battled and fought and
For 8 years.
for 8 years.
That's a long time,
That's a
Jane.
long
And they were
Shows his determination. He
saying
didn't give
things
up.
about him and about my father, and very interesting man he was. And the day, I'll never forget this, I was working there at his office and the phone rings, and I answer the phone. It's Dr. Dana Williams. It was when the court said, you have to desegregate schools, you have to do mandatory busing, you have to do something in Corpus Christi. And they proved that what the school district was doing was illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And they were holding back Hispanic kids from getting a good education. Dana Williams didn't care what they were doing. He thought this is the way people liked it. So anyway, when the court came down...
How ignorant.
I know. When the court came down on him that day, the phone rings, it's Dr. Dana Williams. And so I go to Papa. He's inside with a patient, and I said, Papa, Dr. Dana Williams is on the phone. Do you want to speak to him? He goes, yeah, I'll talk to him. Tell him I'll be there. So in a matter of a few minutes, my father comes out after seeing his patient, gets in his private office, talks to Dr. Dana Williams for just a few minutes, comes out, and being the inquiring, nosy daughter that I was.
Yeah, me too, I want to know.
I said, so, Papa, what did Dr. Dana Williams want? He goes, oh, and my father was writing notes to himself. He goes, oh, he wants me to come when I'm finished here. He wants me to go down there and help him.
Help him.
Help him. I said, help him? He goes, yeah, you know, he's got this court-ordered plan. He doesn't know what to do.
He didn't know how to implement it.
Yeah, he goes, I have to go help him. I said, are you going to go there? He goes, yeah, I'm going to go as soon as I finish. I'm going to go help him.
When the fight was over, that was the end of it.
He could put
So-
that
Wow.
behind him. He put that. He got arrested. My father got arrested.
I would see
Yeah,
that, I
he
see that
got
getting arrested. Dana Williams did that.
And he didn't care. He thought that was good to get arrested.
You know, these are two men that are just almost practically literally fought for 8 years. And then, you know, after it's over with, and he won what he was after, he being Dr. Hector, won what he was after, he's willing to go help the man get it started.
That's
so
right.
that so the kids can get the education that
That's
they
because
need.
he was thinking about the kids.
That's
That's
what
right.
he was thinking of. It wasn't, oh, okay, no, I won. You figure it out yourself. No, he wasn't
No.
like that. He went over there to help Dr. Dana
It
Williams.
doesn't seem as though he carried a grudge.
No, he did not. And he knew a lot of people hated. He knew that. But that was, to me, looking back at him, his life, that was a turning point in his life. People started realizing this man is here to help people.
But look at how long it took, Cecilia.
It took him all his life practically, but they realized Dr. Hector is here to help us, and they started loving him and embracing him and thinking this man is here and he knows what he's talking about.
Wow.
Yeah, it took that long. And then he got the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1984.
What was the reaction in the community that year? I guess I was in struggling through college myself, but I wasn't astute in terms of knowing what was in the news and stuff, but what was the reaction in the community among the leaders when he was receiving that
Oh,
that honor?
everybody was so happy. Everybody, I mean, people were, it was all over the newspaper, and then when we went to the White House, the press was everywhere around him, taking pictures and interviewing him. And
Ronald Reagan gave him that.
Ronald
Yes.
Reagan gave him the medal.
Yes, I see. I was doing some research and I saw that particular cut in the tape, and I found it on YouTube, and it was just so. First time I saw it, I was just so proud. I started to weep because I said, finally, a Mexican American there in Washington.
He was the first.
He was the
He was
Yes,
the
the first I need to put that on my inspirational voyages.
He was
the
the
first
first.
Mexican American to receive the Medal of Honor. I have
Medal
not
of
done
Freedom.
that. The Medal of Freedom, excuse me. The Medal of Freedom, and I need to put that on there on inspirational voyages. What other first? Did he have any other firsts?
He was the first on the Civil Rights Commission, the first Mexican American. And, when he graduated from medical school, there was only one Mexican per class, and he was, in 1940, the only Mexican in his class at Galveston.
It's amazing to me.
Now, they're doing all this diversity and trying to get Hispanics and blacks.
How do you survive going through, knowing the times back then and the oppression and of Mexican Americans, and then going to a college like the University of Texas and being the one Mexican in his class? There must have been a lot of pressure on him, but
but he, and then they didn't, the other sad part is he graduated from there, they didn't accept him in Texas for residency. He had to go to Omaha.
You're kidding.
No, I am not. That's the way it was. He went to St. Joseph's Hospital in Omaha, Nebraska, and Creighton University.
Then he came back to help us here.
He went 2 years there and then went to the Army.
And then he came back.
And then he came back in 1945.
With your mom.
My mother, it took her a year to come to get here. They got married in 1945, and he was a captain, and then he got his major. After that, they gave him his major designation. He was a major in the U.S. Army, and he came back.
Also, he when he was alternate to the UN, he was the first American that had ever given a speech to the full UN Assembly in a language other than English.
Yes, he gave it in Spanish.
Yes, he did.
Yes. You know, what we need to do is, and maybe with the, through the foundation, is put all of those videos together in one spot so that it is accessible to our kids
That's a good
in the
idea.
schools.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to, that was the purpose of Inspirational Voyages, so that our kids could go to one spot and do research on Mexican-American leaders from Corpus Christi. And because although it's great that we have the special collections and archives at
Right.
PAMUCC, it's a wonderful thing, we need the information to be accessible all the time. And right now we have that opportunity through the internet. And and I know that when I did my research on Dr. Hector, I found videos here and there, but wouldn't it be neat if we could just put it in one central location so that everybody...
That's a good idea.
I think that would be a neat thing for at least something tangible that you can do now.
I think
and
we
maybe
have
for the
some-
anniversary, yeah.
I think on our website, we have some links there that you can go through. There are about 4, 5, 6 links that you can go to find out more information
Yeah.
about him.
The last time I did that search, when he was getting the Medal of Freedom from Ronald Reagan, I couldn't find the video again. So I don't know
The
where I can
video,
access
I
from
know
that.
the Justice for My People, I think it was on there.
Okay, I'll check it
Yeah,
out.
I think they do
I
have
think
the
it's
live
on there.
video.
Because and that's another thing. I think that they switched the URL address to the Justice for My People, so that you do have to do a search, and when the search comes out, you know, of course you find it, but it's not the same one that it used to be. So we've got to do something about that. Cecilia and Jim, it's almost time for us to wrap up here. My question is, how do you think Dr. Hector wants to be remembered?
Oh, I think probably is a kind, compassionate individual, put his patients first, and the public first, and he does. I don't think he would want to be remembered for all his accomplishments, like Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient, or major. I don't think those things really mattered to him, but the kind of person that he was, I think is, and I know that because when he was on his deathbed, he did say to me that he said, "I think that I did not do enough." And I said, "How could you say that? Look at all the thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that you helped. You're not only your patients, but all these people across the country that if you hadn't stepped up, they wouldn't have the kind of life they have today." But he told me that. He said, "I just don't think that I had done enough." So I think that's how he would want to be remembered.
Wow, what a role model. And you know what? It's the kind of drive that he had, the kind of, that I wish my students would have, that kind of passion that he had. That's the kind of role model I see him as being. Yes, he won all those honors, and deservingly, like he said, but it's that passion and that love that he had for his community and his family that I think is most impressive.
I think so.
Jim, do you have anything else?
Well,
to say?
Dr. Hector loved this country, and I think that, he is probably the definition of a humanitarian. And he knew at a very young age what we all think that he was put here for a purpose, and he knew what that purpose was. And that purpose was to serve mankind, serve humanity, and take care of not only his people, but all the people of the country. And he did a tremendous job of that. He was so unselfish. And, he could have been a very rich man. He could have stayed in Europe, had a practice over there that very few people could have achieved back in the 40s. But he told them no, he couldn't stay, that he had to come to the States because he had a mission. And he knew what that mission was. Even as a young man, he knew what that mission was. And I think he'd want to be remembered as a humanitarian.
Oh, I wish he was still here.
We think that. Every day I say that. We really need him more. And it's unfortunate. We tried to identify, and a lady did an article on him a few weeks ago about the need for Hispanic leader, and no one has stepped up since his death.
Well, and the thing is, I don't know if anyone can even compare with Dr. Hector. I mean, he was an individual who who had a passion. I don't think there can be another Dr. Hector P. Garcia.
No.
There's just no way. Because as I looked through and I said I did my research and compared the leaders to him, they all reached the pinnacle of their success. They all, they loved to read. Dr. Hector loved to read. They had a love of, they came from large families. The research is right there. But Dr. Hector was a man who comes through this world once in a lifetime. I don't think we will ever see another Dr. Hector P. Garcia, no matter how we try. And as far as stepping up, well, maybe perhaps we're not as brave or courageous as Dr. Hector was. And since there are different times now and different ways of doing things and different type of power structures than he had back then we needed him. And I'm most grateful for him, Cecilia, and I want you to know that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Nancy.
Jim, I thank you so much for your input into our show today, Cuentame. This is an oral history type of thing, but we all have facts and about Dr. Hector, and we know about his accolades. But I think when you start seeing the man for his passion and his love and his kindness, I think that's more important. So, Jim, thank you for your input today. I'm so glad you came. And
Happy to
Cecilia, I love you, and I love your family.
I thank you so much, Nancy.
May
We love
God
you
put His hand over you
Thank you.
and make that foundation the best ever, and may we live to see
Thank you.
that branch or that library or that honor for Dr. Hector at TAMU CC. I know I'm going to do everything I can in my power to help you.
And we need help, and we there's no doubt about it.
We've got to do it.
We got to do it.
We've got to do it for each other.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Until next time, please listen to our show, Cuéntame. It's about you, it's about us, it's about our community. Good night. Oh, excuse me.
Wow. I hope it went well.
I need to get some clean in here.
Oh my gosh.
We talk about him all the time, but we still get teary-eyed. You can't do it without it.
I wish I could say, Dr. Hector, what do I do next? What can I do to help? But it's so hard. People are just so cruel sometimes.
Oh, we know that. We know. I've seen it. I've seen it all my life.
Let me turn this off.
I think my phone went.
No, I brought